My name rang out across the auditorium, sharp under the bright lights, as I walked the stage, eyes searching for them. 8 chairs reserved where my last name sat waiting in the family row. All 8 remained empty. No wave, no nod, not even a shadow, just silence staring straight back as every other family cheered loudly. I let out a quiet laugh and kept moving. 8 months went by. Then my $5 million penthouse made real estate headlines, and that's when the first message finally arrived. Family dinner, 6 p.m. important discussion. I went, but not in the way they expected. My name is Nora Mitchell, and for as long as I can remember, I learned to take up as little space as possible in my own family. Not because anyone said so, but because the rules were etched into the walls of our house long before I even understood how families were supposed to work. Elise, my older sister, was the bright one, the girl who never had to ask twice. Ryan, the youngest, was the one everyone shielded, even from his own mistakes. And me? I became the quiet filler, the steady hands, the one who stepped in whenever someone else stepped out. The pattern started early. I remember the morning Elise forgot her science project. She collapsed in tears at the door, and Mom panicked as if the sky was falling. Without thinking, I handed over the one I'd spent a week building. Elise won second place. No one asked why I didn't submit anything. Mom just said, Sora always figures things out as if it were praise, not dismissal. Years later, my first part-time job let me save for a small set of drafting tools, the first real investment in a dream I was too shy to voice. Before I could even open the package, Dad asked to borrow the money to cover a bill Elise had forgotten. You're responsible, he said, pocketing the cash. She has a good heart, just needs time. I nodded. Nodding was easier than arguing. Even birthdays followed the same pattern. One year, I baked a chocolate cake for everyone, the kind Mom liked. When Elise arrived late with a box of store-bought cookies, Mom kissed her cheek. You always think of the sweetest things. I stood there, cake server in hand, erased without anyone noticing. But the memory that anchors everything, the one that still feels like cold steel in my chest, came years later in a tiny, barely affordable studio. Winter, no heat. I wore 2 jackets, leaning over my chip desk, revising a duplex floor plan I hoped to renovate. Bills scattered across the table, rent notifications blinking on my phone. I called Dad, not for money, just advice, just his voice. He answered, but not kindly. Real estate is for men who understand numbers. Nora, you should try something safer. And then he hung up. That night, the stitching on my black portfolio tore open. I didn't discard it. Under the dim desk lamp, I sewed it shut by hand, each needle puncture trembling. That portfolio became my constant companion through every project that followed. Then came graduation. My name rang out, soaring above the stadium applause. I turned toward the family section. 8 chairs, little cards with my last name, all empty. They hadn't forgotten. They had chosen not to show up. That day, I understood exactly where I stood in my family. 8 months passed after graduation. Quiet months. No one spoke my name unless they wanted to compare me to someone else. I worked. I saved. I signed every deal I could, and I told my family nothing. Silence felt safer than offering them something they might ignore again. One afternoon, parked in my Honda outside a job site, I reviewed a revised valuation while the engine hummed beneath my hand. A notification slid across my screen, an article forwarded from a colleague I barely remembered. I opened it without thinking. Local developer's $5 million penthouse makes headlines. My name stood bold under the headline, beside a photo of the building I had rebuilt, inch by inch. The article detailed numbers, timelines, renovation process, projected returns. My phone buzzed with more links, more congratulations. None from my family. I placed the phone face down and stared through the windshield as late afternoon clouds stretched across the sky. For a long moment, I didn't feel proud or relieved. I just felt still, as if the world had paused to see what I would do next. Then the phone vibrated again. This time, it was my father. Short, direct, exactly his tone. Family dinner. 6 p.m. important discussion. No, how are you? No, congratulations. Another message followed. Don't be late. I held the phone, the weight of 8 silent months pressing through the glass. This wasn't a reunion. It was a transaction dressed as family. I didn't breathe for a moment. Then, in the rhythm I'd learned long ago, I inhaled through my nose, let my shoulders drop, and typed the only answer he deserved. I'll be there. I dropped the phone, started the engine, and watched the streetlights flicker to life as evening settled. Whatever they wanted from me, they had already shown me something more important. They only remembered me when the world did. The message lingered on my screen, long after the engine stopped. I sat in the fading light, hands on the wheel, the plastic vibrating with more notifications, articles, congratulations. The world had something to say. My family, after months of silence, suddenly did too. But I didn't drive home yet. Instead, I pulled into the small lot behind my office building, a place my family never visited. Seattle's skies sank into that quiet bluish gray that always made the city feel softer than it was. I locked the car, climbed the stairs, and let the heavy door close behind me. Inside, the hum of fluorescent lights settled into my bones. I set my black portfolio on the desk, the same one I had stitched by hand years before. The crooked seam reminded me of that cold night, of sitting alone and telling myself that one day I'd have something worth placing inside. I opened it slowly. Paper brush against paper, contracts, valuations, spreadsheets, progress reports, my life organized in signatures and dates. Not one sheet owed anything to my family. I didn't feel anger or triumph. I felt precise. I turned on my laptop. Fingers moved automatically through project ledgers, payments, highlighting line items to close in 6 weeks. Numbers steadied me in ways people never had. Email, spreadsheet, signed, filed, archived, deleted. Each action a quiet heartbeat. At 6:42 p.m., I stood and crossed to the long window overlooking the city. The building across the street glowed from interior lights in a soft amber grid. My reflection stared back, blazer creased from work, hair tied back in exhaustion, jawline sharp. A face that had earned every inch of the $5 million penthouse the article mentioned. I watched it breathe. I hadn't done that in years. My phone vibrated again. Another message, not from my father this time. A firm downtown congratulating me. I let it buzz. 10 seconds later, another, a reporter requesting a quote. Then another. The phone became a frantic animal. I flipped it over, silencing the noise. Silence was what mattered. My plan was already in motion. I pulled out the acquisition file I had finalized that morning. A commercial plaza, months of negotiations, dozens of site visits, countless late-night calls. The most important purchase I had ever made. Not lost on me that it was a key piece in almost every major development plan in the district. I didn't know if Dad and Gerald wanted it, but real estate is small, especially in a city like Seattle. You hear things when you work quietly, when you don't boast, when you listen. I traced the ink on the final page, pressed hours ago. They wanted me at dinner. They wanted something from me. I didn't need confrontation. I needed clarity. Every clause, every footnote, every closing condition was reviewed. Then I slid the packet into the portfolio, pressing it flat, sealing a door. By 7:19 p.m., the sky had turned deep navy. I reached for my coat, then left it. Too soft, too personal. I walked out with only the portfolio. Hallway lights clicked off behind me. My Honda waited, faded paint catching the streetlight. I placed the portfolio on the passenger seat, slid in behind the wheel, and watched the city breathe. Traffic easing, lights flickering, wind rustling the last autumn leaves. Everything I had built came from silence. On the freeway, the city stretched like a map I already knew. Past buildings I'd renovated, past corners where I'd once waited for buses, past the bridge where I walked home alone countless times. Each landmark a tally. Here they weren't. Here I learned to live without them. Portfolio beside me, seam under my fingers. I didn't rehearse words for dinner. Words never worked. They talked over apologies, over explanations, over boundaries I tried to draw. I stopped trying. This time, I brought proof. Turning into my parents' neighborhood, the houses stood like obedient witnesses. Porch lights clicked on as the sun disappeared. I pulled into their driveway at 6:59 p.m. Punctuality would matter to Dad. Through the dining room window, silhouettes moving, Elise leaning forward, Ryan gesturing, Dad pacing. None of them knew what waited in the passenger seat. I opened the door, stepped out, adjusted my blazer collar. One slow breath in, one steady out. They wanted an important discussion. Fine. I had something important too. The front door opened before I knocked. Dad filled the frame, shoulders squared, greeting a client rather than a daughter he hadn't spoken to in 8 months. "You're right on time," he said, stepping aside. No hug, no warmth, just approval for punctuality. The dining room was full. Elise sat upright, swirling her wine. Ryan leaned back, fingers drumming the table. Gerald adjusted his tie like a boardroom prep. Mom hovered behind her chair, smiling too hard. I took the seat farthest from the head of the table, intentionally left open. Dad cleared his throat. "Let's get straight to it. We have an opportunity." Gerald leaned forward, hands clasped. Warehouse district redevelopment. Valuable land. Strong projections. We're ready to move but need capital. No flinch. Dad nodded. "We thought this could be a family partnership. You bring funding. We guide the project. Everyone wins." Elise raised her glass. Generous, honestly, for someone so new to this. Ryan snorted. "Yeah, learn from real experience." Mom touched my arm. "Sweetheart, this is a chance to be part of something bigger." I let their words overlap, like static. No apologies, no acknowledgement, just their plan wafting like cooling roast on the table. I reached for my black portfolio, set it down. The sound cut the room like a coin dropping. "I did come for an important discussion," I said quietly. "Just not yours." Dad frowned. "Nora, we don't have time for—" I opened the portfolio. Stacks of clipped, ordered documents slid into candlelight. Gerald leaned forward. "Is that the commercial plaza?" I nodded. "The one every development firm has circled for months." Dad inhaled sharply. "You're exaggerating. That property isn't even available." I looked at him. 4 months ago, it was. Signed acquisition documents right here. Names reflected faintly on glossy pages. Elise froze. Ryan's chair creaked. Dad's jaw twitched. Gerald's fingers shook. "You bought it," he whispered. I nodded. "Entire plaza, which means your warehouse project has no anchor. No anchor means no funding, no approval, no investors." Dad finally spoke. "Why would you do this? You knew we were going after it." "No," I corrected. "I knew the city was. Unlike you, I don't wait for opportunity." Mom's voice cracked. "Nora, we're supposed to be family." "A family shows up," I said. "You skipped my graduation. You skipped my life. But you didn't skip the headlines." Silence filled the room. Thick, unmoving. I gathered the documents, slid them back into the portfolio. Soft click. "You wanted an important discussion. This is it." Dad slumped. Elise looked at her plate. Ryan muttered under his breath. I adjusted my collar. "Dinner's yours. The future's mine." No one followed as I walked out. They stayed quiet. The night air cut through my blazer, porch light humming behind me. I paused, then walked to my Honda, slipped inside. The cabin smelled faintly of old upholstery and vanilla air freshener. Hands on the wheel, breath settling. Through the windshield, I watched shadows in the dining room. Someone gesturing, someone sinking into a chair. I couldn't hear a word. That silence was earned. My phone buzzed. A message from Mom. "We didn't know how to make things right. Please don't give up on us." I didn't open it. Didn't delete it. Turned it face down. Started the engine. The drive home traced streets I knew by heart. Corners where Elise left me waiting. Past park where Ryan bragged. Hills that looked bigger at 16. Each place smaller now, belonging to someone else's memories. Downtown, city lights rose to meet me. White gold, steady. My penthouse building glimmered like a lighthouse. I parked, rode the elevator, unlocked the door. The quiet inside, clean, mine, no tension, no unfinished sentences. I placed a portfolio on the kitchen island. Stitch seemed catching light, a thin shadow across marble. Traced it with a finger, recalling that freezing night, sewn shut in a studio with no heat. Back then, silence felt like punishment. Tonight, it felt like clarity. I crossed to the floor-to-ceiling window, pressed my forehead to the glass. City stretched below, calm, endless, honest. For the first time in years, I didn't need to explain myself. Silence isn't what hurts. It's who breaks it. I looked out one last time. Windows reflected only me. Steady, unbent, mine. All my life, I saved seats for people who never came, room for apologies that never arrived. Now I understood. Boundaries aren't cruelty. They are quiet doors we close so life can breathe again. I turned off the lights. Calm earned darkness. If you've ever rebuilt yourself in the silence someone left behind, tell me, where are you listening from? Some stories begin the moment we stop waiting.